Yes, please.
A very pleasant evening to everyone present here. Creativity is the ability to produce something with a stamp of uniqueness upon it. Velamal believes that creativity is the bedrock of all civilizations. With this blast of introduction, I wish a warm and hearty welcome to everyone on screen. With the blessing of Velamal Party, it is indeed my immense pleasure to cordially welcome our visionary chairman, sir, our honorable director, sir, beloved director, ma'am, who have been instrumental in shaping thousands of young minds and helping them to be a vibrant part of our society. We also welcome zonal heads, school heads, teaching faculties, students, and our dear parents. A special invite to our guest speaker of today's session, Ms. Tanya Abraham. Velmal always walks ahead of time to equip younger generations to lead emerging new worlds. And we, as Velamalians, are privileged to be a part of such a great institution who leave no stone unturned to ensure that the students are at par with the latest happenings around the world, be it education, sports, or arts, ensuring that there is a holistic development among each student. Today we have Ms. Tanya Abraham with us to shed light to make us realize why creativity matters. Ms. Tanya is the curator and director of Kasi Art Gallery in Kochi and the founder of the NGO, the Art Outside Society. Ma'am worked as a journalist the last 15 years for India and international publications, an art curator, educator, and writer. We are happy to welcome you, ma'am. Our guest of honor is here to foster explosions and sparks in excitement and innovation in each one of us. I once again welcome you on behalf of Velamal Fraternity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you like me to start now, or is there another little brief coming along?
No, ma'am. You can please start, ma'am.
Okay, great. So before I start, let me thank everybody for having me on board. Thank you to Murli Chiroth and the school for welcoming me and having me on this platform. It's really an honor. And I just want to get an understanding of how many students we have today and how many parents are there. Just an average idea.
Ma'am, we have close to 190 participants over here with a student count of, I think, apart from us, it is almost nearby 187 to 188. Approximately, there will be a very few number of parents joining. Majority will be students, ma'am.
Okay, great. So then I will address the students largely, because that's what's more important at the moment, because the body is largely of the student.
Yes, ma'am.
Students, right? Okay, great. Yes, so again, thank you for having me on board. And the reason I'm here today is because I believe in what I have said in that poster when Murli asked me to give a title and send the details. It's not something which, I've churned up overnight, or I've created an idea or a certain ideology that one wants to spread. It's something that I firmly believe in because of the impact it's had on my life, and also because of the impact I've seen it has had on other people's lives, especially my colleagues and others who we have worked very closely with. So when we talk about creativity, there's always a question on what it is, because it's such a vast and large subject. And it's something that has been in existence, especially in India, from time immemorial. If you look at our ancestry and if you look at the Indian civilization and the journey that we have gone through as, as creators and artists, and the general formation of society was very founded on the idea of creativity. And when we speak about creativity, something which I'm induced or lured to share with you is the fact that it really is the essence upon which our everyday life is built. It's not something to do only with art that you're putting down on paper, or the colors that you see, or a theater performance, or music that you hear, but there are many other facets to it. It is what really is the pulse of life. And even from a spiritual angle, because I know being Indians, we all have a certain faith that we've grown up with. And perhaps even today, we express that faith in different forms. It is not separated from the idea of creativity, because spirituality, if you look at it, especially from an Indian perspective, it's very creative in nature. There's a sense of the living. It's very alive, right? So when we speak of creativity, and for you as students, it really becomes a very crucial ingredient in who we are as people and who we intend to be tomorrow. So it's not just about understanding a particular kind of art alone, or you walk into a gallery and you really, okay, I understand that, which is fantastic, and it's very needed. That art education, or education through the arts as well, is extremely important. But when we speak about creativity, it really is about bringing the idea of art, and bringing the idea of the way life is formed into the people we are. And that is where creativity really becomes a part of who we are as humans, and allow us to flourish, to become better human beings, both consciously and unconsciously. So while I'm taking you through the journey, somebody would have to keep time, because I tend to lose time when I'm speaking, and you have to give me a 5-minute warning to stop, when we're close to the time limit. So yeah, thank you. So when we speak about creativity today, and you as students, and the few parents that are on board, I'd like you to look at it from a perspective of how it can make you a successful human being. And I'm not talking about just being a good human being, which is very much, it's very important in this whole thing, but also as a human being who's going to be contributing to society, who's going to be adding to knowledge, who's going to be, yes, being successful. It could be economically, it could be socially, it could be culturally. So you look at a holistic picture, and it's only when we try to attain that holistic success that we actually begin to realize the beauty of life, right? So as students, I'm assuming that the position you're in now, and the subjects that you have to learn, and the competition that exists in school, and your need to perform, all of that is a very important aspect of your lives, and it is reality. It's not something that can be dropped saying this is not important, because it is the structure in which we have developed the way we live, and we are going to have to embrace that as well. So the whole point here is, how can we better that? How can something like the arts better us in our performance, in our happiness, in the way we are as people, in the way we apply our values, in the way we are able to think better? And through that thinking, actually produce better results, whether it's your examination, whether it's at work tomorrow, and whether for the parents, it's the gap that sometimes exists between the two generations, the difficulties that we as parents encounter when we're handling our children. All of that is what we have to look at, and see how we can actually see the importance of the arts and creativity to make it a more meaningful life. So to take you through things, what I'm also going to do is also give you an idea of why I'm talking about this, and examples of situations, real life situations, where creativity has come to play and really made a change, and really made an impact on not just individual lives, but on the society as whole, right? So you're learning about the arts, or you want to get into the art field as a career, is absolutely fantastic. Even if you don't want to, what's important is to try and bring the arts, whether it's music or visual arts or whatever it is, into your lives, so that a lot of other things can be achieved. And so I'm going to take you very briefly through the way this works. And this whole work that has, the reason I'm saying this is from all the research and work we have done at the Art Outreach Society, which was just mentioned a few minutes ago. It's a not-for-profit organization, and we work with art education and we work with community building. And a very important aspect is mental health, emotional wellness through creativity and the arts, right? So when we started working on these angles and we started implementing new ideas and a particular kind of methodology of intervention in people's lives using visual art and music, we started examining and recording the changes that were happening, and really real life changes, right? So we would have workshops, we would have modules created that would deal with different challenges that children or even adults are facing in life. It could be stress, it could be an emotional issue, it could be bullying, it could be fear, examination issues, a whole lot of things which make life difficult. And so we started using the arts to help people overcome that. And it's not something which happens overnight. I use an art module and then tomorrow I'm okay. No, it's like peeling an onion. You take time, you peel each layer, but each layer that we peel, we are taking one step forward. And what happens? So, it's very important for us to understand how this was happening and what happens when we deal with the arts, and why some people, if you look at it, especially in India for the longest time, maybe things have changed now, but for the longest time, people were very reluctant to get into the arts because the economic gain was not as much as you would get from some other field like medicine or engineering, or even there was a sense of security that came with it. But we have to understand that if people did embrace this, there has to be another reason to it as well. And that's what modern day science is now researching and emphasizing so vehemently: the importance of creativity in human living, in our success as individuals, right? So in the 21st century, what scientists have said, and there's this great book by this author called Daniel Pink. He's written a book on how and why the right brainers will rule the world tomorrow. So when we're talking about the right brain and the left brain, for the longest time, it was believed that it was the left brain, which is the analytical or the logical brain, which helps you decide on numbers, certain kinds of skills which we needed to perform in life. That was the important aspect of the brain, while the right brain, which was the more creative brain, which worked with the arts and all of that, was not as important. But today they have come to the realization, for the optimal working of the left brain, the optimal working of the right brain is absolutely necessary. For that balance to be created and for success to be churned out, the right brain has to be induced through various creative mechanisms. So it could be from, you may not be a skilled artist, but you might be playing with colors. And there is something that's happening in your brain that activates the right brain to perform better as the brain on the whole, right? So this is the finding that the scientists have really, they're affirming this today. And they're talking about the fact that technology is moving at such a fast speed. If you look at the way the IT industry is developing and the new technology that's coming out into the world, we're developing computers and machines that are, competing with us as humans. And if we humans have to be ahead, and if we have to innovate better and still be in control of the machinery that is in existence and what is going to be created later, then that is possible, as per science, only through the continuous activation of the right brain, which means creativity is a very sharp and important ingredient in our lives today. We cannot do without it, because it is only through creativity that the left brain starts to operate in a different way. So going back to what I was speaking about earlier, which is with the Art Outreach Society, we started working on these aspects. We started working on emotions of people. We started working on with school children and general art education, but bringing in angles of creativity from a very different perspective. And what we saw was that over a period of, say, after about 3 months of work, the shift from a specific kind of emotion, say that's fear, or you have an emotion of, feeling unwanted, or there's no motivation to study, would shift, and we would monitor the shift to the positive end gradually, but definitely and for sure. So that's the kind of change we saw. And then we had all of this work being studied by Christ University in Bangalore, which has now vetted the work that we've done to say that there is a change that is taking place. So that's what I'm trying to share with you today, the importance of something like that. So you might ask me, so how is this happening? Why is this emotion changing from a red to a brighter color, which might be green? You're moving, imagine a mood meter kind of shifting from red to green. So you're raring to go after that. How do you overcome a fear? How do you motivate yourself to do something which you hate doing? So you have to remember that, suppose I'm afraid of going into a dark room, or I hate going to school for some reason. And you just cannot figure it out why this is triggering this horrible feeling in you, and you don't want to go. Let's imagine you don't know what it is. There is always a memory that is attached to that particular feeling. It could be an experience, a trauma, a dislike that you developed because of a particular experience. And we might not remember that experience. Either your conscious mind is completely cut it off, or you don't want to remember it because that's the way you cope to survive, right? Now, what happens with using creativity as an intervention is that it helps you go back to that particular period and change that feeling. So imagine it's like a computer with certain amount of files. And then you have all these files that have recorded that particular incident. Now, this particular intervention that we bring about will then shift those files. So the earlier memory does not exist and a new memory is created. So you kind of wipe the old memory through colors and different work, and then you create another memory, or you create another reality. Let's put it as reality. And so that feeling of fear or sadness or whatever you're associated with starts to shift. So what happens in your brain is that all of these files are in the form of, like little electrical transmutations that whizzes through your brain, like that goes zhoosh, like that in your brain. So every time I'm talking, every time you're listening, everything on these thousands and millions of cells that are constantly bombarding these various electrical impulses in your brain. So suppose one particular fear is one pathway or a neuro pathway that is created through these electrical impulses. When we work with creativity or when we work with the arts, just imagine it has the capacity to actually use our mind's capacity to imagine. Now, that's where creativity plays a role as a tool. It works on your imagination and produces a new pathway so that you have actually created another reality for yourself. You can ask me questions on this earlier because it could be a little complex, but it's a very simple thing. Just imagine an electricity. There's a zap of electricity going through your brain, and it's producing a very difficult feeling for you, like say anger or sadness. You're using your imagination through these colors, and then you're creating another pathway which is going to overlap this, and you have forgotten the past, right? So that's what happens from a very deep therapeutic kind of way. But what happens if I'm playing with colors every day? I come home from school, I take the colors, and I'm just scribbling and I'm playing. It still has an impact on the way we think as individuals. It has a way of expression. It has a way in which the electrical impulses are then, kind of the way they start firing changes, because our brain is built in such a way that it constantly needs to be working with imagination. So even if I'm scribbling, it might look like a scribble, but that has taken an effort on my imagination to produce that scribble, right? So there constantly your brain is in a creative mode. And when it is in a creative mode, the beauty is not just about an emotion alone, but we are constantly being programmed to think innovatively, to think how to solve a problem. Because let's take what Murli is doing for you at your school, for example, and you're learning all of this art. And there, through learning this art, there is this unconscious setup in your brain that's being created on how to solve problems, how to find a solution to, a particular idea. Suppose he's put something on the table and he says, draw it or paint it, but use your imagination and make it look like something else. Let's assume he says that. Your mind is immediately kickstarting to actually find a solution to that problem which is in front of you, which is to change it from looking like A to looking like B. So when your brain or your mind is constantly working in that form, tomorrow when there is an issue, say at work or at home, your brain naturally kickstarts to find a solution to solve that problem. It's becomes a normal thing. It becomes a part of who we are as a part of our lives. For example, when Apollo 13, the spaceship that when it was launched by the United States, they had a big problem on how to solve a challenge that happened in mid-air, and they didn't know how to rectify a particular situation, and the only way it could be done was to find a solution how to fix a circular hole. There was a hole which needed to be closed, and the only thing they had was a square hole which had to be filled with a circular bolt like thing which would leave gaps. So to cut the long story short, I mean, of course, they would have tried all kinds of things, but they were able to actually find a solution to how to do that, from an engineering perspective, because they were constantly allowing that innovative idea or that innovative thinking process was already in action. Now, if it wasn't, how are you going to solve that problem? Your brain is suddenly, it's bombarded with a whole new problem that needs to be solved, and you don't know how to go about it. Now, what was understood was that all the 3 astronauts that were on board that on that particular spaceship, they had some sort of engagement with the arts. One was a musician, and the other, was she was not a painter or anybody very skilled, but she used to be using a lot of paint and things like that every day. She used to sit with her children. So there was, this is what the study brought out, that the brain had already been accustomed to finding solutions. So it was much easier then for them to go down that route, right? So that is where creativity becomes a very essential part of who we are as people, as individuals. So when you are having an art class, that is, and you're very lucky because your school really takes so much of effort to provide you with that platform. And not many schools do that. I mean, they might have an art class, but I know the kind of work that Murli does. So I can just as well imagine how in depth that would be. And really it becomes a foundation to who you are going to be as performers tomorrow. Whether you're going to be a doctor, whether you're going to be an astronaut, it doesn't matter. Because everything finally in the 21st century boils down to how innovative you can be, how fast you can find a solution. And if you want to get to that point, then the one thing other than spirituality or other than meditation or prayer is what is proven to be effective is being involved in a creative space, which can be anything. It can be paint, it can be your music, it can be whatever you choose for it to be. But getting involved in that really increases your capacity not just to be better human beings and happier people, because there are a whole lot of other brain changes that happens when we indulge in it, but also to be prepared for the challenges tomorrow when you grow up and go to college or go to set up a business or you go to work somewhere. You are actually creating a foundation for yourself to develop that. And that's the one thing that parents really, if we have the time and the resources and the inclination mostly to allow our children to flourish in that sphere, there is always an angst that, are they spending too much time with this because they need to study and they need to produce these kind of marks, which is the reality which we live in. But trust me, the long process that comes from being part of a creative space or a creative, using creative tools or mediums, this is the impact that happens. And I'm not just saying because I've read it in some book. I'm saying because we work with it every day. We work with it at schools. We work with it at slums. We work with it at destitute homes. We are, in fact, now working on a project to take these modules and make it of use to prevent drug abuse and also to help children with cancer. So this is the power that creativity has, over human lives. But unfortunately, we have dropped it along the way somewhere. We, as an Indian civilization, we always had it, but with colonialism and all of that changed, our heritage tremendously. We have forgotten this. We have forgotten that the idea of creativity and being part of that creativity is almost as equal to, the idea of spirituality, where when we meditate or we pray, there's a sense of peace or happiness that we get. So this is as important as that, because it really functions both from a physical point of view and also from a spiritual point of view, because your imagination is at work, your dopamine is at work, your serotonin, which is your happy chemical in your brain, that is produced more. So it's not just one little thing, but it's a full package that comes with it. And of course, then when you're learning art education, or you're learning how to evaluate art, or create art, there is another whole angle to it which you're very aware of. You really become citizens of the globe, where you contribute to society, and you also become a more empirical in who you are as individuals, because being able to relate to culture or the arts really elevates us into another realm of life. And you may not realize it today, but I went to school more than 30 years ago, which actually had art classes just the way you have it. And that really has been a foundation for me in my life, for what I do today, the way I look at life, the way I embrace life. And so you're really, really lucky that your school provides this platform to you, because you may not realize it today, but tomorrow, when you are wherever you're going to be, when you make a conversation, it might be about the arts and you'll have lots to say. When you have a problem in front of you and you need to solve it, and you need your brain and your mind to think a certain way, your brain would automatically kickstart, because it's so used to finding solutions through colors and through the way you reproduce something on paper or using clay or whatever your medium is. You are already in a space which is far ahead of children who are not in that space, or never had an opportunity to be in that space. And that's why, creativity is so important to be embraced and to become a part of our lives. Now, if you look at Apple as a product, I'm talking about the computer, the technology brand Apple, which was created by Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was very radical in his thinking, which you probably know. And what he did was, when he was hiring all the engineers to come on board his team, he said he wanted equal number of artists on board. And this was, not in the 90s. It was not this 2000, wherever we are in now. It was many years ago. And he said he wanted artists on board. And at that time, nobody really understood what he was trying to do. Because where he was coming from was, artists will come out with ideas which are so different, which will make our product stand out amongst the already, the other products. So if you take an Apple phone, an iPhone, and you take another Android phone or whatever, Why does this have this all this branding that it's managed to create? Is because it has, it functions this very similar way, right? You can do a lot of things which you can do on an Android. You can make your call, check your emails, all of it is practically the same. But there are certain features that makes a particular phone differ from another phone, or a computer differ from another phone, right? And that element which makes it creatively beautiful, or makes it attractive, or has features which makes it different from another phone, came from the artists and the engineers working together. That element of creativity was brought in to see how a particular product could look different from a design perspective, could behave differently, was easy to use. So there are many layers that were, involved in this whole process when Apple as a brand was being created. And today it's realized across the spectrum of professions. Businesses want people who have a creative background, especially in the West, and it's definitely going to hit us in India soon. And when those ideas, when brought onto the table, changes the product. For example, you take a spoon and a fork. If you go online and you want to buy a spoon and fork, you'll have 100 different brands available for it, right? Some are gold in color, some are steel, some are iron, some are twisted, some are very, very decorative. So what is the function? It's the same thing. It's to serve or to eat or whatever. I can even use a coconut ladle for that. But why is this standing out and I'm not going for something else? Because probably the design is more appealing to me visually. I would imagine that, okay, it's easier to hold this handle than the other one. So somebody has actually taken trouble to understand that this design works better and it's more functional than some other design. So where does this difference come in? These differences come in when you have creative thinking people on board who are researching from an engineering perspective, who are researching from a design perspective, and then they create a product which you and me as customers would want to buy. It's a competitive world where one thing has to be better than the other if you need to sell it. I would have to perform better at an interview if I wanted that job than my peer who's going to be there also taking that interview, right? I would want to perform better and go up on stage and be a certain kind of a person than somebody else who is already very good. So how do I make myself more creative? How can I be innovative with what I'm putting forward? All of this, if you look at it, goes back to having a foundation in the arts and in creativity, because it allows you to think of new ideas. It allows the brain to start functioning in that way. So if we don't constantly feed the brain with creative, things, what happens? It stops functioning from an optimal level. We continue to function. We have we have work that we know we have to go here, we have to do this, and those things happen. It becomes very mechanical, and there's a growth in that, of course. But if you want to excel from a different perspective and stand out or battle the issues that you're facing as an individual in society or school or whatever, there is a foundation that's needed, just the way prayer and faith and all of that help us overcome a lot of things in life, the way our religion or our culture has taught us. Creativity was another element which Indian civilization had embraced for the longest time, to be that, which we have unfortunately abandoned, forgotten, whatever it is, for other reasons. There's a whole lot of colonial reasons and things like that attached to it. But we've come to the point when the West has now started talking about it and everybody's paying attention. And as far as I'm concerned, the reason I started the not-for-profit organization, the reason I decided I wanted to be in the creative field was, one, it brought me happiness. Second, I felt there was purpose in what I was doing. And thirdly, I saw the impact, not just in my life, but also in other people's lives. There was a change that happened very unconsciously. And that's what led me to actually get into the space and try and figure it out. Today, we are sitting, at a point Murli knows about it. I'm trying to see how we can create, a sort of digital format for this work so that children across the border can use it. Whether we can take art education to more schools, and children who are not as lucky as you and me to have gone to schools where the arts is a subject, but to also to them, because everybody has a right to it. And unless we do that, we do not become a holistic society. So if there are children, for example, who are lured to drug abuse or things like that, we have to remember that it's because a part of them is not finding fulfillment, or is not motivated enough, or is not challenged enough to embrace life. And really that expression can happen through the creative field. The suffocation I might feel as a teenager growing up, it can be expressed through the creative field, that I don't need to find solace and comfort and happiness through another medium like drugs. So that's how impactful this particular field is. And you have wonderful mentors with you, and I know Murli is extremely passionate about what he's doing at the school, because he constantly talks about it. And that one thing, as parents and teachers, and as students, I would say embrace it and try and develop new things out of it. Try and take what you already have and then create another workshop and another workshop. So you're constantly evolving and innovating and things like that. So there's a whole lot of stuff I can talk about. My curatorial work again involves a lot of creativity, where we try and use visual arts as a medium to speak to the public, to create change in society, social change in terms of, I work a lot with gender identity, patriarchy, and all of those kind of things. So this is another great medium because it creates such an impact on the human mind that it helps bring about social change. So that's a whole different subject, and I'm not going to go to that. I'm just giving you a gist of why and how creativity can change lives, why it's so important. And really, if you choose to embrace it, it doesn't mean you have to be an artist or a designer tomorrow, but if it's part of your life, it's constantly going to allow you to evolve. There's always a progressive line that's going to be brought into that, right? So what I'm going to do is, I think we have like 10-15 minutes for question answers. So I'm going to stop here because I'm going to take 5 to 7 minutes or so just to give you an example based on something that we developed in the NGO, just to get an experience of an understanding of how things can shift for you, right? So do you all have a sheet of paper with you? Just any blank white sheet of paper? Or
yeah, we have given instruction for them to have a paper.
Yeah, so whoever has it, just take it out. Do you have a pencil and crayons or something with you?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I need you to do once you're ready, I'm just going to give you a few seconds to get ready. Take your paper, keep your pencil and your crayons next to you, ready to start. And take the pen. If you're left-handed, take the pencil in your right hand. If you're right-handed, take the pencil in your left hand. Right? So if you're right-handed, if you write with your right hand, take it in your left hand. If you write with your left hand, take it in your right hand. Now close your eyes, and using your pencil, start drawing anything you want on paper. It can be scribbles, whatever you feel like. Just go with the flow and just draw anything. It can, but try and cross your hands so that figures are created, so that's not just straight lines, but you wiggle and wobble and just sort of create any scribble that you want. Okay, I guess you're done. It won't take long to do that. Now, the second part of this is going to take a little bit of time. So I can even because we have, I think, just 10 minutes left to close the session today. We will do a part of it. Take a part of it. take a part of that whatever you've scribbled, choose a part of it, and take a few colors and decide whichever color you want. Just go with your instinct. Don't think too much. Just choose the color you want and start coloring within that space you've scribbled. Like you start coloring it, and it could be like something you're creating out of it. So you might see a scribble can be made into a flower or something else. You can start coloring and develop something out of it, or you can simply color the insides of that scribble. Give you about 3 minutes. So just do what you can, and you can finish the rest of it at home. Just to give you a feel of it. We actually should finish the whole thing, but I don't think we have time for it. But I've explained to you after you finish. So sorry, you can color it with your right hand, okay? Or your dominant hand. When you color, change your hand. You choose different colors. There's no rules to what you want to do, what you can do. If we have like about 2-3 minutes left, then we can. I'm just wondering if a few of y'all can show on screen what you've done after about a few minutes. Okay, I think a few of the students have finished.
Ma'am, shall I allow them to turn
Yeah,
on their videos or something so that
yeah, I think it's fine. You can.
yeah. Children, those who have completed your works, you can please turn on the videos and show it to ma'am. Okay.
We have a lot of artists. Okay. You can just lift it up. Wow. Okay, great. So what, if you look at what you've done and if you look at what the students have done, you've actually taken a scribble. You've taken a scribble, which you've drawn with your left hand, and you've created something which makes more sense with your right hand. So how it works is when you're using your left hand and you are scribbling something, it is your subconscious mind or your mind which you are not consciously aware of or in control of, that is functioning, because you're using the hand which you're not consciously in control of. So if you're right-handed, then you use the left hand, right, for the pencil. And then if you were left-handed, you were using the right hand. So when you take that and then you're coloring it with consciously, you create something better. So this is exactly what happens in your brain when you work with creativity from any angle. Something which is messed up or muddled, like the scribble you did, when you use creativity from a very conscious level, you can create it into something which is better. And happens very normally in your brain when you keep working with the arts. Am I making sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? So because your mind, your human mind, is in two parts. Most of it is you don't know what's happening. And there's only a small 2 or 3% which is your conscious, you know, okay, I have to eat this, I'm tasting that, I'm walking there, I'm doing this, and all of those things. The rest of it is happening unconsciously by itself from what you picked up as a child and all of those things. So when you start working with the arts, you can actually function in such a way that you can change that. And this little exercise was just to show you how it is done, right? So you can ask me any questions that you have, and you can, if you haven't really understood the idea of this exercise, please ask me so that I can explain it again to you. I can see some young kids as well here. Yeah,
Children, can you
switch off
please?
the videos, it's fine.
Children, you can switch off your videos and you can actually use the chat box for asking your questions, as well as if you really wanted to explain it, please use the raise hand feature and we'll selectively unmute you.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to leave you to ask any question you want to. Please don't think there is, it's a stupid question, it won't make sense. No, I'm here to answer all your questions. And if you have any doubts, and if you have anything else you want to know, just ask and I'm here for you.
There's a couple of raised hands. I'll just selectively unmute them, ma'am.
Yeah, okay.
One Master Jawahar Nehru, kindly please unmute, ask your doubt. Jawahar, Master Jawahar, kindly unmute, ask your doubt, please. Okay. So next person, Sujai M.
We can draw in pen also.
You can use any medium to draw. You can even use your fingers and paint.
Okay,
there is no limit to what you can do. It's about when you do something, you should enjoy it.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. There's also a question from, I don't read the name too clearly because the font is not clear, but it says, ma'am, I don't understand the process because drawing is my natural talent. If you're blessed with a skill, great. But this particular exercise, what we did has nothing to do with talent. It's just to show you that when you are constantly in the process of creating, so if drawing is your talent and maybe you, you might enjoy something which is different, which is music, it has the same impact. What this exercise was just to show you that when you do anything with art, it has the capacity to change things. For example, we spoke about if you have an emotion such as fear, it is possible to change that fear using a particular kind of art to find something more peaceful or happy or whatever. So what was the intent for me to say that was that when the importance of the arts. So it is right now we're talking about art, not just for people who are talented, because that could be something you've inherited from someone. But creativity or the arts is as important even for those who are not that talented or without a skill. The skill is different from how important this is in our lives today. Am I clear with that? So this this activity basically is just to show how, if you are constantly every day doing something with the art, you can, automatically changes will happen in your mind without you even knowing. And it also happens much easier when you are using a particular color and things like that. So how you have taken a scribble, which is from, and then made it into something, somebody made an eye, somebody made flowers. So how you're able to change that is just a demonstration, or just to show you that this is what happens to you when you are using colors. You can actually move from a not so pretty space or not so great situation to a more positive situation. How can you find a solution? How can you find an answer to a problem that is there at work or at school or whatever? So when you are using the arts, there is a natural movement in your mind that happens. So it has nothing to do with your talent. You don't have to be talented. This activity was just to show that you can go back home and try it again, and then think about what I'm telling you. Because also we're online, we're doing this. There is a little bit of a difficulty in probably for me to come up to you and explain this is what has happened individually, which I would have done otherwise. But go back home and try it again and think about it. Because when you are using your left hand, if you're right-handed and you're using your left hand, you have less control. And so you're just, you're doing something with your left hand. But when you're taking your right hand consciously and you're coloring that, you are able to control that and create something which is new using colors. Is just to show you how the transition or the change happens in your mind. Is that clear? I hope I didn't confuse anybody with that, because I didn't realize some of the students are quite young as well. So yeah, please.
We had a mixture of students from class 6 onwards.
Okay, but that 6 is okay, because we work with this with kids. I think it's also the online.
Yes.
It makes it a little bit difficult. Okay, so I think there are some more questions. Somebody says, okay, with the Vidya talks about disadvantaged children. Vidya, I can give you a personal experience of mine. So we go to some of the government aided schools, and people who come there are from all, they don't segregate or distinguish the children. They put everybody together in one class. So this particular school that we worked with was in Kochi. It's called St. Joseph's LP school. It's a very primary, basically first, second, third. That's all the kids there were. They didn't have many students because it was a poor school. And there was this boy who had Down syndrome, and he was with the regular, with the whole class. And we worked with them for a very long time with just basic art education, not any extra tools or art intervention based on therapy and modules, nothing. Just art education, which was meant for the general student body there. At the end of 1 year, the things that we recorded for this particular boy, he used to drool in class, so children never wanted to play with him. He couldn't be part of the community of children. He was very slow. He couldn't read. So he was not acutely disabled, but he had disabilities, but very, very visually there, as well as it was, impeding him. It was making it difficult for the teachers, for the students in the class. We saw that there was in 1 year an 10 to 12% is what we recorded shift in the way he responded with his classmates, the way he interacted in class. So 10 to 12% is a lot when you look at somebody who's got Down syndrome, because if you continue this process for another 10 years, you imagine the shift that that child is able to find. So we saw a change in the child. He was taking part in group discussions, what simple group discussions with regard to class subjects or whatever it is. He was able to go and even just sit with those other children. Earlier, he couldn't even do that because he was so intimidated. So that's the kind of impact that we've seen firsthand. There are also a lot of modules and interventions that have been created specifically for disadvantaged children. Unfortunately, we haven't found the funds yet to get into that realm. Hopefully, when we find the funder, we would be able to even get into that realm. But definitely, the impact is tremendous, even for them. And I've just shared with you what I have seen with my own eyes. So yeah. So somebody's asking, can we paint using one type of brush? You see, as long as it's not a skilled based class, which Murli is the expert in taking for you, not really me, you can paint with anything. You can paint with your fingers. It doesn't matter. How do we publish our own artwork on platforms for sale? So from a commercial perspective, there are many online platforms you can Google and see, and then send them your work and see whether they accept it. But this is a long shot, you will have to. So when if you're an adult artist, you can ask Murli, is the best person to tell you how to work with galleries. If you're a youngster, there are online platforms, even for children, who can actually start getting your work published first, and then sale is the second part of it. So first try and get it published so people view you. Even use Instagram or whatever and publish your work so that you have an audience, and that's what's most important. Yeah, did I miss anything? Anybody else with questions? I think two people have
Children, we can entertain one or two more questions. Children, you can post it in the chat box.
Yeah, please just put it and I'll read it out.
Children, if you have any doubts, you can please put it in the chat box. In that case, is it a good time to close, ma'am?
Yeah, so Arun has actually asked about 2D and 3D artwork.
Yeah.
So 2D and 3D artwork is something which is more contemporary and of today's world. So as in the beginning, because you're a budding artist, I'm assuming, you would have to try and see how you can just get your work out there through the platforms that are available to you. So there is today's world, as you know, Arun, there isn't a specific route. You have the globe as your audience. You can really just go out there and do it. And after you've earned your followers or whatever, like I said, then you can approach people who are using this kind of work, whether it's for commercial sale, or you can even be working with technology based companies who are going to be using it in some other perspective. So the whole lot of stuff that can be done with it. Now, the three participants have raised their hands. Do they want to ask anything, or?
I will just ask one of them to unmute. Yeah.
Women's asked, how can I improve my skill? I think the simple fact that you're having so many great classes at your school and practice at home, you can slowly evolve your skill. There's no limit to what we as humans can do. Somebody might be more skilled than somebody else. but we would have a skill in something else. So it's about, find your passion, find find where, be attentive to who you are and what you like and what you want to contribute. You are at a point in life where really any career has a future. It was not like it was 25 or 50 years ago. Any career has a capacity to be developed into something which is economically viable, as well as contributing to some sort of industry. So, if it's arts-based skills, then you have the right people already mentoring you and, taking that. So again, somebody else has asked about how do I draw better. You have to practice, you have to keep learning. I think that's the only way to do that, and follow your passion. Nobody becomes a great artist or a great something overnight. So for example, I have people in my family who actually draw much better than me. But that didn't make me give it up, because I was very passionate about the arts. And today, my skill in the arts is more of in curatorial work, in imagination. I'm able to look at a piece of work by an artist and say whether it has harmony, where it needs a little bit of adjustment. So that's the skill that I realize is my strength. So in time, you will figure that out. So just don't give up. That's the only thing. Just keep doing and keep learning and keep moving forward. Okay, I think that's about it.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So we have also come towards the end of the session in terms of timing, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Actually, you made my work a little easier by selecting out all. Yes, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
I think Bhumika has something to ask. Would you like?
I will just unmute. Bhumika, can you please unmute? Bhumika, can you please unmute and ask your doubt, please? Bhumika, you can ask, ma'am.
Hi, ma'am.
Hi, Bhumika.
How are you, ma'am?
I'm good, thank you, Bhumika. Nice to meet you.
Ma'am, I'm Bhumika from Said C.
Okay.
Bhumika, please ask your doubt, Bhumika. She has muted back.
Okay, maybe it's
okay.
It's all right. It's all right. Yeah, so the main thing is don't give up doing what you're doing. Even if you don't know how to draw properly, just keep trying. Because every time you're doing something, it's adding to your life in some form or the other. And you're really lucky to have art education as part of your school work, I work with many schools, and it's not taken seriously. They have something, but it's not serious. And I know with the faculty on board your school, it's a very serious matter. And somebody like Murli Chirot is always innovating new ideas for you all. So you're very lucky. Don't miss out on that opportunity. And even if you don't get your answers today, you will look back in another 10 or 15 years and say, okay, this has formed a foundation for me. That I can promise you will happen, because it happened for me. And it happens for people, who don't give up. So yeah, so that's about it. I hope it was a fruitful session, and for the parents as well. Yeah, I would just request your parents to keep encouraging your children to be involved in the arts in whatever form it might be, whether it's classical music, whether it's visual art, whatever it is, because it really provides a foundation to become better people, to be happier people, to perform well at school, and, things like that. All right.
Thank you, ma'am. It was indeed a wonderful session.
Thank you so much for having me on board. Thank you.
For those wonderful answers.
Mm-hmm.
So I would now request Ms. Adelina, can you please unmute your audio and video to officially give the vote of thanks?
Can I start now?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Gratitude can transform common days into thanksgiving, turn routine jobs into joy, and change ordinary opportunities into blessing. I am Adelina of Velamal Modi Campus, Tanjore. Deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this special occasion. First and foremost, I give the glory to Almighty for making today's occasion a resounding success. With the blessing of Velamal Party, I would like to express a sense of gratitude to our Director Sir and Director Ma'am for providing us such an splendid opportunity to explore more, discover more, and innovate more, and in turn build our sense of creativity. I would also like to thank Mr. Murli Chirot sir, our creative director, Mr. Bivek sir, our Chitravati head, Mr. Srinath sir, the head of VB Live. We also extend a hearty gratitude to all heads and in charges of Velamal Knowledge Park for the constant support and commitment in conducting such an interesting workshop. I express the heartfelt thanks to our guest of honor, Ms.Tanya Abraham, for an interactive section and on importance of creativity that strengthens the learning ability, which will in turn help attain success. Thank you, ma'am. It was an indeed much needed session for all of us. Last but not least, we thank you, dear energetic and enthusiastic brimming artists. Your endless cooperation has contributed to the grand success of this event. We are certain that this workshop would have helped you explore and awake your artistic side. I also thank our wonderful parents for rendering their support without whom this event wouldn't have been success. Thank you everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Adili Nair.
Thank you.
Yeah, Adili.
Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Most welcome, my pleasure.
Srinath. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Srinath. Yeah,
Thank
bye.
Thank you, Bivir sir. So I'll now end the session. Thank
Yeah,
you all
please.
children for joining in, parents, children. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.